Hello. If you're new here, hi, I'm Emily. Figured my last video was really fun to make with day in the life of a UX designer, so I figured I would keep rolling on that UX train, I guess, and talk about UX assumptions. Or I've noticed that a lot of people, like even close like family and friends and stuff, they don't really know what I do exactly, or like, you know, different assumptions about what I do and don't do, or like the education required. So I figured it'd just be a fun video to kind of go through. So I asked some friends and family what their assumptions are about UX or user experience design, and then we could talk through them. So I also added some that I know that I've heard of, or like when I was learning about user experience for the first time, what I thought it was. So I have a list just going on my laptop, but yeah, I guess let's just jump into it. Okay, also this is just a real quick disclaimer, but this is all based on my experience, and I also very much work in software and development and stuff in like a very technical cybersecurity system. So this could, like, you know, take all of this with a grain of salt, please. Thank you. All right, let's get into it. The first assumption is that UX is just glorified graphic design. So that is not necessarily the case. We do a lot more than just what I would classify visual design. This is pretty similar to graphic design, but I feel like we do way more than just graphic and visual design. So yes, we can make pretty pictures of, you know, websites or like apps or all of those different things that you kind of think of when you think of digital, visual, graphic design. But user experience also, while we do that kind of the end of our process, there's a whole bunch in front that we normally do as well. So that includes like talking to potential users, really understanding the requirements of like what our design needs to do. For example, if we like use a cake example that I've heard in the past, and that I kind of use to help describe things, it's, you know, you need to talk with your clients and understand maybe what's the occasion, what are different allergies people might have, things that don't necessarily go into how something might look, but the whole experience of how people interact with what you end up designing. So the next one is kind of following in the similar thread, and that it's UX and UI, or user interface designers, do the same thing. So this is pretty similar to the last question, but UI designers generally focus on only creating and designing the actual interactions that are happening. So on a website, this might be, you know, actually designing what the checkout experience looks like. So like what colors, what font, how things are placed on the page, all of that. Whereas UX design, you know, you still have all of that front process of talking with users and like understanding needs and maybe pain points in the current process to help create a better user experience. So maybe that means, you know, people, you know, if you're like filing your taxes or something like that, then you're able to get through the process relatively pain-free, and have a good experience. It's easy for the user to go through, they're not stressed, stuff like that. So once again, UX and UI are different things. The next thing is user designers work with lots of different people throughout a company, and this is generally pretty true. For me, I work on enterprise software right now, and so I tend to work with product management, product owners, development, architecture, so how the software is actually going to be kind of pieced together. So I tend to work with quite a few different people, and we all kind of come together to make sure that our product, on what I would be concerned about is our product easy to use, is it user friendly, Is it intuitive? How, does it appeal to our users? This could be involved visually, and also just what are our user end goals? Are they able to accomplish that with our software? That kind of stuff. Whereas with folks that I'm working with, like for development, for example, I would be working with them to make sure, okay, here are my designs. How can we actually build that to implement it? Because for them, there might be different ways that we could build it, and that might influence the user experience and vice versa. So definitely want to talk with everybody, keep them all in the loop, have lots of meetings and iterations on designs to make sure that everyone is happy while keeping the user experience and the customer or the user in mind. Okay, let's see. Next one is user experience isn't that important and anyone can do it. So this is something that I've kind of heard just like online, and when I was like, when I would talk to people about it, they're like, oh, can't anyone just like design something that's really easy and intuitive to use? Theoretically, yes, but a lot of people will tend to design for themselves. And so a big skill that we learn as UX designers in school or through online courses, or just like on the job, is not to design for yourself, but to make sure to design for your users. So for me, this would be like security analysts. They're going in, they're trying to sift through large amounts of data to find certain little things that may be not good or breach in security. I don't know if anyone's heard Log4j breaches that are happening from open source software, but those are the things that we want to help our users find when they're using our system, and make it then, okay, it's one, can they find it? And then also two, do they know what to do after they find an anomaly? So to help with that, maybe we would give them a playbook of, okay, this was detected because of this. We recommend you do XYZ with checkboxes next to it so they know that they've done it or they haven't done it. Something like that. So it is very important that we are allowing users to be able to navigate and find things that they want easily. And yeah, it is very important that users can use your platform and can use it effectively, particularly in high stress environments like cybersecurity or something like that. Also, even just like for e-commerce stuff, of a lot of companies put a lot of time into creating like a good shopping experience and like an easy checkout process, because for them it also impacts their bottom line. If people are struggling to find where their cart is to actually check out, then they're probably just going to abandon their cart and not actually buy anything. So it also is very much a business, has a lot of business implications as well as just user implications. So while everyone can theoretically do it, it takes a lot to be able to really do it well, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, a UX designer is basically a software developer but helps make the software relevant. No, I guess, because I would never consider myself a software developer, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Is for me, like, I'm never really working in code. Like, I know how to code front end, so like use CSS and HTML, but I wouldn't consider myself a software developer by any means. Like, I'm not normally using that at all in my work. Instead, I am helping to design what someone else is going to code, if that makes sense. So in a way, I guess I help make software relevant, but I feel like that's like kind of preachy and not actually very accurate. I just help make sure that the software that is designed is user-friendly, it is efficient, and it helps solve the problems that our users need to solve. One assumption was that I like as a user experience designer, I'm just a really good website maker. While I would like to think that I make I have the capacity to make good websites. That isn't the only thing I do. And that kind of, I think, goes along with another pretty close assumption that I've heard too, is UX designers only work on digital products. And that's definitely not the case at all. Like there's a whole nother realm of user experience, which is like many people call it like service design, or there's like a couple different terms for it. But basically like user experience is just a very general umbrella to cover a variety of like products and services, anything that you are like experiencing, like it can be potentially designed to make that easier for you. So one example like of user experience is going to Disney, for example. Like that entire process of you walking into Disney, everything from then on, or like even getting there with your buying your ticket and how you get into the park and all of that, like that is an entire user experience in and of itself. So it's not, yeah, user experience designers don't necessarily just do digital products. That just is like a very common thing because we have such a digital world now, and that's like kind of the new like forefront, I would say, for a bunch of products with like apps and just with the internet being so pervasive in our society. So that's why a lot of UX designers do work in digital products, but that doesn't mean that we can't do other things either. Okay. So the next one is, I assume you do a lot of programming and that you would have to come from a computer science background to be a UX designer. And that is actually not the case. I came from a mechanical engineering background actually, and got into product design and user experience that way, because I was always like pretty technical minded, but also had this creative like artsy side, and I wanted to kind of bring them together to create solutions to problems. So that's how I got into UX design in the first place. But if you have a computer science background, that's awesome. If you know how to code, a lot of that will really help when you're designing your own, like especially digital products, because you actually know what's feasible and like how much work like programmers have to put into actually developing what you're designing. So that's like super helpful, and honestly probably really nice for the developers as well that you're working with, because then they know you're not just like making up something that they will never be able to feasibly implement, because there's definitely a give and take in that realm. But I actually don't know a ton of coding, and I don't use coding day to day. Instead, my tools are called like Sketch. Well, we're currently using Sketch and then kind of transitioning over into a different tool called Figma. So I'll like put up here on the screen, I guess, like some samples of like what I would be doing in these two applications. They're both meant to do the same thing. It's basically to help me like either brainstorm different ideas and like brain dump like information and stuff, or like gathering requirements, talking with folks, answering my own questions, kind of consolidating and like organizing it on this like infinite workspace that you can use. So that's like one way that I like to use it. Otherwise, my other way that I use these tools is to help create the user interface design, so the UI designs that we then will hand off to dev to actually create and develop our designs. Okay, and our last one is that you need formal UX design training to get into the UX field. And that is completely incorrect. I know now, as people are trying to, like more people are trying to get into UX design and get jobs in the field, it definitely helps to have some sort of experience, whether that's like a degree or there are a bunch of boot camps and like that kind of stuff. But you definitely don't need formal training. A lot of the designers that I worked with have actually come from different backgrounds that are kind of adjacent to UX design. So like even for me, like I was in more engineering and very technical, mechanical engineering, but then I went and did a master's program in product design. And so that helped me kind of transition my technical engineering, like problem solving skills, and make sure that I'm actually doing more user focused design, and how to keep them in mind and that kind of stuff. Whereas like a couple of my coworkers now, they've worked in graphic or visual design, and then have kind of transitioned over into user experience design. So rather than only just like creating websites or the very visual aspects of the designs, they're also now talking with users, gathering requirements, iterating, all of that good stuff, rather than just making pretty pictures. I hate to that's always an on-running joke, but there's that. I know other folks that have been coming from like computer science and their programming, and wanted something that was a little bit more people focused rather than just coding all day long. They wanted to actually interact with the folks that were going to be using what they developed. So that's another pretty common thing, or even just like an arts background of being able to kind of understand visually different how like colors and typography and all of that kind of comes together. Definitely helps when you're trying to transition into user experience design, because then you basically have that UI design section of it already good to go, and now you just need to learn like your research tools and like all of that kind of stuff to actually get the information you need to know that you're designing the thing that your users need. But yeah, I think that is it. Hopefully this is kind of short and sweet and informative and fun. But yeah, I guess let me know if you have any other assumptions that I can go through, or questions about UX, because I think it's still very much a new and growing field, and I'm always happy to talk about, my experience or all of this other stuff.